My name is Alex Howard. For nearly 20 years, I've been a therapist here in London. I am deeply passionate about helping people make real, positive change in their lives. Having been through therapy myself at different stages of my own life, I know how transformative it can be. That's why I started In Therapy, a series that follows the stories of brave participants as they go on therapeutic journeys with me. Join us as we go behind the scenes as people grapple with issues like depression, anxiety, and chronic illness, and join my mission to break the stigma around mental health and asking for help. This is In Therapy with me, Alex Howard.
Hi folks, I just thought I'd give you a quick update. Obviously there's been developments in the world of pandemia. I'm on the sleeper train, I'm in my little cabin, which, I don't know if you've ever seen any of these before. It's not as glamorous as you think in the James Bond films, but yeah, I'm heading to Scotland. At the end of the day, I've not been in contact with anybody. I've been self-isolating for weeks, and my mother, this will be her first Christmas without my dad. She's not in the best of health herself. It's on all our minds. I think that, maybe this might be her last Christmas. I had another long dark night of the soul last night trying to figure out whether I should just cancel or whether I should come up. And at the end of the day, I decided that I'm taking more precautions than the government's taking. I hope you are all staying safe and have a good Christmas. Well, I've been in Scotland 2 weeks now, and I've been kind of neglecting my sort of video diary commitments. So today I thought I'd take you for a walk in the wilderness. It's been quite snowy. It's starting to sort of melt a little bit now, but quite pretty. And a strange Christmas and New Year. Obviously a lot of firsts. First Christmas without my dad, first New Year without my dad, my mum's first birthday without my dad. It was also my dad's birthday on the 30th. So, family all kind of got together and, just spent it together. And yeah, it's been nice. It's been sort of as good a Christmas and New Year as it could have been, I guess. I've been persevering with the journaling that Alex suggested, which, to be honest, just makes me sound like a whiny motherfucker. But you know, I'm sticking with it. And I've been taking the time to sort of, you know, do some of the mindfulness stuff, meditation stuff, and that's been working well for me. So anyway, I'm freezing my bollocks off here, so I'm off. Happy New Year, folks.
So you're in Scotland, right?
Yeah.
I think last time I saw you were saying, "Oh, I might go out for Christmas, but I might get stuck up there." So sounds like you got stuck.
Yeah. So I'm stuck up here. But you know, there's worse places to be stuck.
How have you been? Because it's a while. I think last time I saw you was the 16th of December, so it's probably just under 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Or even probably is 4 weeks. So yeah, do you want to just run me through sort of the chronology of what's been happening, and then let's kind of come into how you've been doing?
You know, I was glad I managed to sort of get out before lockdown happened and stuff. And yeah, I spent like a week, you know, Christmas week working up here, and then it was just, I was sort of on leave. And but yeah, it was just good to sort of spend some time with obviously my mum and with the sort of wider family over sort of Christmas and New Year. And you know, and I'm glad my mum wasn't on her own, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And her health's not great, you know, she's got various problems. So it's good that I've been here. Obviously, in terms of other stuff, I've been able to sort of, the journaling thing hasn't been going well because I just sound like a whiny bastard. So I need to kind of find a way of doing that where I don't sound like a whiny bastard.
And is that your inner critic telling you you're being a whiny bastard, or is it that you end up sort of just going into a sort of self-pitying sort of mindset? Like what's the actual flavor of it?
I think it's both of those, but I think it's also the fact that, you know, I used to be a sort of professional writer, and I'm just like going, that's just whiny bullshit. There might, you know, but yeah, so I'm kind of persevering with it, but I'm not doing it every day or anything like that.
Okay.
I have been making time though to do the kind of mindfulness sort of meditation things, and that's been good. That's been helpful.
Can you say a bit more? Because I think we talked about, which I know was a little optimistic, but we talked about trying to do a daily meditation. How often has it been, and what has been the effect do you think, from doing it?
It hasn't been every day, but it's been virtually every day. So there's
Wow.
some days I'll miss, and I've found that rather than doing it in the morning and stuff, which was one of the things you had suggested, I've found that actually sort of doing it usually about sort of nowish, when I'd be sort of the days when I'm working, I'd be sort of finishing work. So it's more like I've been using it more as a sort of I guess it's a sort of buffer between the working day and, you know, going back downstairs.
I'm watching Midsummer Murders.
Yeah. Going back downstairs and watching John Nettles, you know. So that's kind of been kind of using it. I guess it's been relaxing me. You know, it's been good from that point of view. But it's also hard to tell because there's also like 3 weeks where I haven't had to listen to techno music coming through the wall. So, you know, but I would say that it's definitely been working. It's definitely been allowing me to relax and just to kind of, you know, drift, you know, kind of sort of contemplate's too grand a word for it, but just to kind of just have that sort of, buffer, you know, just a sort of a full stop to the working day. And then, so
when I last saw you, you'd been having a really difficult time with sleep. How's that been?
it's still not been great, but it has been better. Um, but
What does better? Because I think you'd had 2 or 3 nights in a row where you'd barely slept when I last saw you. So
yeah,
better looks like what?
I mean, there's still, every couple of days where I won't sleep, but because I wasn't having, when I was on leave, I wasn't having to get up for a specific time. I would just fall asleep, and I maybe wouldn't fall asleep till like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. But there was no necessity for me for be up and at my desk or at my computer
Yeah.
for a specific time. So I would just sleep till like 11, 12 o'clock and be fine. So yeah, so I'm not feeling quite as exhausted.
Okay.
But another thing which is quite a kind of positive, well, it's definitely a positive thing, is and it was funny because it was like, because obviously you just had my email address from the email I'd sent you before, but whenever you sent me the email yesterday, it sort of said on it Wheel of Life, and I thought, was I meant to revisit that?
That's my lady replying to our last email. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, was I meant to, was that just is that him replying, or is it just me? Was I meant to, So I kind of dug it out again, and obviously one of the things that was kind of rock bottom was sort of work and finances and stuff. Well, pretty much rock bottom.
Yeah, and last time we spoke, you were applying for jobs.
Yeah, so I'd been for a few interviews the last time we spoke, and in fact, I think I'd had one the day before or something like that. But I mean, none of them were. I mean, I felt that I'd done well in all of them. I felt that I'd done as well as I could, but I didn't feel particularly confident about any of them. But I've now been offered 2 jobs.
Wow! Congratulations, David.
Thank you.
Really
one of them was actually for an interview I went for before the first lockdown, but because it went into lockdown and there was a sort of a reshuffle of the department.
I remember you said that was still in play, and you were still waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the job that I'd been for just before I saw you the last time, they'd sort of said to me, well, because there was a lot of applicants, and there was 4 roles. They sort of said, well, we'll let you know in January. So I didn't hear anything last week, and I just thought, well, I didn't get that. And then over Christmas and New Year, the place where I'd been, basically waiting for 9 months, got in touch saying, all systems go, made me an offer, sort of provisional offer, subbed its checks, did the checks, and got offered the job sort of last week. And so I was like, okay, it's a step down slightly in terms of progression, but it's about the same money, and it's a job I've wanted to do for a long time. And, so I was kind of just set on doing that. And then at the weekend, the job that I had gone for, which is kind of a promotion and is definitely a lot more money, got in touch and made me an offer. so it's kind of like, and obviously I was on leave up until sort of Monday there, so I haven't actually really had a chance to speak to any of my managers yet, and it's like, yeah, I've been offered 2 jobs.
Congratulations. I think that's and well done for putting yourself out there and taking action on it as well. I think when you did that Wheel of Life exercise, it really felt like it was the career piece and the relationship piece were the 2 particular pieces that have been causing a lot of the suffering that's been going on. To have one of those pieces in a potentially very different place in the coming months, I think is a really great outcome. So well done. How has your overall mood been over the last month?
I'd say it's been more positive. There's been up and down moments, and obviously with it being Christmas and New Year, and it's one of those things where it's been, I think I mentioned to you before, it's a lot of firsts. So, it's the first Christmas without my dad.
Yeah.
It's, my mother's birthday's on Christmas Day, so
That's a bit big, yeah, this year.
so it was her first birthday without my dad. You know, it was my dad's birthday on the 30th, so it was again that was the first birthday we celebrated without him, and we just kind of got together as a family and had a Chinese, and it was nice.
It sounds like being with your mum, although it's probably not something you want to do forever, but for this period of time, it sounds like it's been positive. It sounds like there's actually been a sense of support and kind of community that's been helpful for you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely, I think so. It's definitely felt less claustrophobic.
Right. Which I think then raises the question about, I suppose you don't know when you're going back to London, because the lockdown in Scotland's on until end of February or something, isn't it?
Lockdown in Scotland is at least until the end of January.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'll make a decision then. But I think the lockdown in London's lasting until March, I think.
Yeah.
So.
At least, yeah. and in terms of the potential new jobs, when would they be to start? Would you just start remotely, or would they have to?
Yeah, I would just start remotely.
Yeah. So it feels to me that going back to our original Wheel of Life conversation around these pieces, now the career work piece is in change. The relationship piece is a difficult one to deal with in lockdown.
Yeah.
But the living situation feels like another important one. And it strikes me that the difference in your mood over the last few weeks, I think it's various factors. I'm sure it's partly the excitement of the new career direction. You've had some time off work, there's various factors to it. But I think part of it is also being in a home environment that feels not negative and even not neutral, but positive, which is what we ultimately want to create in your life in London.
Like I say, I think there's definitely been a lot of different factors, and the positivity of the job will wear off, but hopefully there'll be some residual effect.
Well, I think there's that initial sort of excitement which will lift you, but then if you're in an ultimately more supportive and positive environment, that will sustain. That is something that's fundamentally different to what you've been experiencing. I should ask you, how do you feel the inner critic piece has been over this last month or so?
Definitely not as bad. Yeah, I would definitely say it hasn't been as bad. But in saying that, I haven't, I haven't really been in a work environment very much. I haven't really sort of been interacting with anyone, but I would definitely say it hasn't been as bad. Yeah.
It sounds like you haven't been challenged as much, but it also sounds like some of the work that you've been doing, I think the meditation, the mindfulness has probably helped a lot as well, because it's just often the inner critic is a product of the system being too wired and too stimulated. And it's like, it almost doesn't matter what the noise is that's going on. We're tuned in to that sort of pattern of mental noise and busyness. When that calms and settles more, there just tends to be less being plugged into that. And it sounds like that's also part of what's been going on. And I think I'm a big fan of trying to mine the learnings when life is going better, to take those insights into life the rest of the time. And what I'm hearing you say is that being in a more healthy, positive environment is helping. Having a sense of progression and moving forwards in terms of career is helping. Acts of self-care in terms of your meditation and some of the work that hopefully we've been doing is helping. Not being in that sort of toxic environment at work, like all of these things are, they're all helping. And how do we ensure that, as whether it's in a few weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is, kind of going back to London, how do we avoid that? Because just like the positive change is a product of these various ingredients, the negative is a product of various ingredients. How do we avoid things slipping back into that place? Because I think from this place, you're also much more likely in time to meet the right sort of person for the right sort of relationship as well. So how do we maintain this place and avoid stepping back to the other place?
What's the thing? I don't know.
Well, let's break it down into a few categories. So one category is the acts of self-care. So for example, the meditation's one of them. I'm wondering what else of things either we've done together or things that you know that are helpful for you. What are the habits or the practices that support you?
I mean, obviously the meditation stuff's been helpful. The sort of recognition of the inner critic, and you know, that sort of not fighting against it and not really, you know, or trying not to give it too much power. That's been useful. And I think, I'm still lucky in that, I have this network of friends that I've still been sort of in touch with online and stuff, and that's been useful. But I think, and I think this was something I spoke to you about before. I think I've gotten a better appreciation of the mundane.
But why do you think you're appreciating things more? Because the outside world, I mean, it has changed, of course, with all that's been going on with the coronavirus, but I think it's more something different in your attitude that's been allowing you to have that appreciation.
Maybe, I just know that it's something positive that I'm associating with lockdown or with the events of the year, and it's like, it's something I hope I don't lose the appreciation for.
Yeah.
Well,
it strikes me, and it's really interesting having this conversation as we are, because I also experience you quite differently today. There's a difference. There's a kind of a more lightness. There's more optimism. There's a sense of, I also feel you feeling quite proud of some of the progress that's been happening, which I think you should be. I think there's a sense of yeah, actually, I've changed some stuff, and I feel good about that.
Also, I'm not in the room with you, so there's not that physical and sexual threat.
People do say that. That can be very intimidating sometimes. But it's like there's something about that different attitudes and perspective that we somewhat get what we look for in life. So when we're going out and we're looking for all the things in our life that we feel pissed off about, frustrated by, stuck with, the more we look for that stuff, the more we see that stuff. In fact, there's a part of your brain called your reticular activating system, and its sort of purpose in your brain is to look for patterns. And so that's like when you get a new car or a new jacket, whatever, you start seeing that everywhere because your brain's looking for the pattern. That when we go around and we look for all the things in our life that we don't feel good about, we see those, we feel those, we see more of those, and it becomes its own toxic mindset and its own toxic place. But the same is true on the flip side, that the more we start to look for things in life that we feel appreciative of, those things were there before, we just weren't seeing them.
Yeah.
We see those, we feel more gratitude, we become a bit lighter, people often a bit lighter then towards us. The dynamics in our relationships also then start to change and shift as a result of that. So I was thinking also, because you got to module 3 in the reset program, I know you also did the inner critic and we did the emotion stuff, but I think you haven't done modules 4 and 5, right?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, so modules 4 and 5 is where we get into some more practical techniques for basically catching certain patterns of thinking. And then we see those patterns of thinking, being able to almost literally stop those patterns and shift our attention and shift our mindset. And it's a much more practical set of tools, in a sense, to some of the more kind of talking about feelings and emotions that we've also been obviously doing. I think that would be just as I'm thinking on the question that I asked you about how do you continue in this more positive direction as opposed to slipping back into those other places. I think those modules would be a helpful way of you doing that, because it's almost as you start to see those ways of thinking, looking for the negative, looking for the things that aren't the way you want them to be. If you can catch those patterns and stop them and shift your mindset, you can start to proactively create the mindset you've been in over these recent weeks, rather than it just be a product of certain events that you've been changing. part of your motivation to come into the therapeutic work that we've been doing is you were in pain, like you were suffering and life was difficult. And that was a motivation. I don't want to feel this way anymore.
Yeah.
And you've made, hopefully partly because of the work that we've done, also partly because of things that you've kind of actions you've taken in life, and partly as a result of some circumstance, that you're not in the level of emotional pain that you were when we first started working together. I guess it's sort of 3-4 months ago, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's also, as I say, it's a sort of a bit of a crossroads, because if the motivation is just, I feel really shit and I don't want to feel shit anymore, now you're not feeling so shit. The risk is that that motivation then fades away a bit. And then gradually over time, things can start to slip back to being where they were. Or at this sort of crossroads, it's, I don't want to go back to that place, but actually I can see these other things in my life that could also be different. And as opposed to it just being a getting out of pain, it almost becomes the fuel or the motivation to change more things in your life.
I don't think just because I'm feeling a bit better that I'm out of the woods necessarily. I think there's still, and I think that the experiences I've had so far with this have been, positive and therapeutic. But it's I think, a big part of the reason I've got to this stage is because I've been doing this. So I think I should keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's just, like I say, it's not just because you feel a wee bit better doesn't mean to say you're fine. Then tomorrow I could be down again.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear you say that, because I'm certainly not an advocate for people being in therapy indefinitely forever.
Yeah.
I think, like you did, I think was it 10 or so years ago where you went into therapy and you did a course of therapy. I think it was really helpful at the time.
Yeah.
Things changed. I'm not one of these people that thinks everyone should have a therapist they see 3 times a week, but I think it feels to me that we're perhaps halfway through a sort of piece of work, a collection of pieces of the work that we're doing. And I feel really good with the place that you've got to, but I sort of feel like we're not there yet, and there's more to do. And I'm glad to hear that motivation and that enthusiasm is still there on your side, because I think there's also, for me, our work done well, all said and done, looked back on in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, is not you sort of going, oh, I was in a really shit place and I saw Alex and I wasn't in such a shit place. It's I was in a shit place, I saw Alex and I really feel I sorted some things in my life that needed sorting, and it was a sort of turning point in some ways. That doesn't mean that life is a sort of Disney movie happy ending ever after. You're still welcome to have your post-apocalyptic misery afterwards. But there's a sense that hang on, sorry, my battery just died in this camera. Just 1 second. Forgot what I was saying. I think it was something around that this ultimately becomes a catalyst for the next chapter of your life being fundamentally different.
Yeah.
So in terms of homework, you're going to continue with doing your daily, as much as possible, daily meditation practice.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do modules 4 and 5 of the reset program.
Mm-hmm.
And I think looking particularly, and I think modules 4 and 5 will help you in doing this, seeing where you can, sort of the difference in these two mindsets.
Yeah.
The mindset of seeing what's good, what you can be grateful for, as opposed to that other mindset. And I think just continuing to build awareness around that is also going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for me?
Not at the moment. I'm just making a note of the modules I need to do. But yeah, that sounds like a good course of action.
Okay, good. Good, and good luck with the decision around which job you take. It sounds like that's going to be a whichever way you go, a really good positive step forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it's little steps.
Good. All right, have a good few weeks, David, and I will talk with you then.
See you later. Have a good week.
Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Hope you found this week's episode of In Therapy helpful. I think it's so great to see the progress that David's been making since doing that Wheel of Life exercise right back in his second episode. We're also really starting, I think, to see the benefits of his meditation practice, that calming of his system and building the foundation for things to change. Just a reminder that this week is the Fatigue Super Conference. If you're not already signed up, please do. We've got over 40 of the world's leading experts on fatigue. You can go to fatiguesuperconference.com to find out more. Next week, we're going to be catching up with Katie, and Katie's really been working on her self-care, connecting to and building her relationship with her inner child. I'm so pleased to say she's starting to really like the person she's finding. That's always the way in the end. We really start to connect with our true self. And from that place, she's starting to reach out to some of the family members that she's been having some struggles with. Here's a taste of what's coming up next week. So it sounds like things have been a bit more positive. So talk me through it.
I feel like there's been a real big shift. And that's what prompted me to write the letter that I was talking to you about in the last session. So I just explained in the letter that what I'd done and that I was proud of the work that I'd done. I liked the person that I'd discovered.
I want to hear that again. You say you liked the person you discovered?
When I finished reading it, I just thought, it's time to forgive.
Wow, Katie, good for you.